You know what nobody tells you about retirement? It's not the money stuff. It's not the healthcare stuff. It's not even the what do I do with myself on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. stuff, though that one hits different, trust me. No, what nobody tells you is how quiet it gets. And I don't mean peaceful, birds chirping, hammock in the backyard quiet. I mean there are whole categories of noise in your life right now. Sounds, stresses, conversations, alerts, dread that are just going to vanish. Gone, like your coworker who microwaves fish in the break room. One day there, the next day, mercifully absent. I'm Matt, and today I will tell you about all the things that go quiet after you retire. And some of these are going to make you laugh. Some are going to make you tear up a little, and some are going to make you want to retire right now. Let's get into it. 1. The alarm. Now look, I know that sounds basic. I know you're thinking, Maddie, I figured that one out. I don't need a YouTube video for that. But hang on, because I'm not just talking about the sound. I'm talking about what that alarm represents. That alarm is anxiety with a ringtone. That alarm is your boss's hand reaching through the wall at 6:15 in the morning and shaking you awake. That alarm is the starting gun for a race you didn't sign up for but have been running for 30, 40 years. When that alarm goes quiet, and I mean permanently quiet, not just on a Saturday, something in your nervous system exhales that it hasn't exhaled in decades. Retirees consistently say one of the first things they notice is that they stop jolting awake before the alarm even goes off. You know that thing where your body just anticipates the alarm and wakes you up 3 minutes early anyway? Your cortisol spiking, your brain already running through your to-do list before your eyes are even open? Yeah, that stops. Your body figures out over a few weeks that the threat is gone, and you start waking up naturally when you're actually done sleeping, like a golden retriever in a patch of sunlight, peaceful, unbothered, thriving. That silence is worth more than most people give it credit for. 2. The Sunday dread. I call this the Sunday scaries, and if you've ever had a job, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that feeling that starts creeping in around 4 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon. You're watching football, or you're cooking dinner, or you're trying to enjoy the last few hours of the weekend, and there it is, that low-grade hum of dread. The emails you haven't answered, the meeting first thing Monday morning, the project that isn't done, the colleague you've been avoiding, the performance review you've been dreading. The Sunday scaries are essentially your brain doing a pre-flight check on all the things about work that stress you out and delivering that stress to you 18 hours early as a courtesy, a terrible, unwanted courtesy. In retirement, Sunday is just, well, another great day. Sunday becomes your favorite day, actually, because here's the thing. In retirement, every day has the energy of a Saturday. You've got freedom and options and nowhere you have to be. But Sunday specifically gets a second life because the dread is just gone. You're eating your Sunday dinner and you're just eating your Sunday dinner. No asterisk, no background noise, just pot roast and football and peace. That silence, the absence of that weekly dread, is one of the most underrated gifts of retirement. And it happens fast. Within the first few weeks, most retirees say Sunday completely transforms for them. 3. The commute. Now this one's interesting because the commute isn't just physically quiet after retirement, it's energetically quiet. Let me explain. The average American commute is about 27 minutes each way. That's nearly an hour a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year. Do the math, that's over 200 hours a year sitting in traffic or packed into a subway car or white-knuckling it through highway interchanges. That's more than 8 full days every single year just commuting. But it's not even the time that's the worst part. It's the state of mind. Because the commute in the morning is just pre-stress. You're mentally rehearsing your day, bracing for impact. And the commute home is post-stress. You're decompressing from the day, still partially at work in your head, maybe still answering messages at red lights like a person who doesn't value their own life. When that goes quiet, you get back those 200 hours, but more importantly, you get back 2 transition periods every single day that used to belong to stress and now belong to you. Mornings become yours,
evenings become yours. The car becomes a place you drive when you want to go somewhere fun, not a rolling cubicle. Some retirees say they actually miss their commute at first, which I always find fascinating. But when you dig into it, what they miss isn't the commute itself, it's the sense of purpose and structure the commute provided, which is a totally valid thing to feel, and it points to something we should be intentional about in retirement, building new rituals that give us that structure without the stress. But the grinding, anxious, traffic-filled Monday morning commute, not one person has ever said they miss that. 4. Office politics. Let's talk about office politics. And I'll keep this one clean because I know your coworkers might be watching. Actually, no, they won't be watching because this is a retirement channel and they're still at work. So let's be real. Office politics is exhausting in a way that's hard to quantify because it's not task-based. It's not like you can look at your to-do list and say, navigate organizational dysfunction. Check. It's ambient. It's the reading of rooms and the careful choice of words and the figuring out who's aligned with whom and who's on the way out and what the boss actually meant in that meeting versus what they said. It's the management of relationships that are professional but also kind of personal but also fundamentally transactional. It's a whole second job running parallel to your actual job. When you retire, all of that just stops. You don't have to manage up anymore. You don't have to manage across. You don't have to smile at people you don't particularly like because you need something from them. Your relationships become voluntary across the board. You keep the people you genuinely like, you let the mandatory relationships quietly expire, and your social world becomes, maybe for the first time in your adult life, entirely made up of people you've actively chosen. That is a spectacular upgrade to your daily experience. 5. Performance reviews and metrics. Here's one that I think hits especially hard for the high achievers out there. Performance reviews and the constant measurement of your value. For your entire career, you've been evaluated, ranked, rated, given scores and feedback and development plans. You've been told what you're good at and what you need to work on by people who may or may not have had any idea what they were talking about. You've had your compensation tied to metrics that may or may not have reflected your actual contribution. You've played the game of being seen as valuable, of documenting your accomplishments, of making sure the right people knew about your wins. All of that apparatus goes silent in retirement. Your value is no longer something that gets reviewed annually. Nobody is filling out a form about your performance. Nobody is benchmarking you against your peer group. Your worth as a human being is no longer up for quarterly evaluation. For a lot of people, especially high performers who've built their identity around achievement, this is both a relief and a disorientation. The silence where the performance review used to be can feel a little empty at first, because if nobody's measuring you, how do you know you're doing well? And that's actually one of the great psychological challenges and gifts of retirement. You get to decide what doing well means. You get to define your own metrics. Maybe it's how often you laugh. Maybe it's how present you are with your grandkids. Maybe it's how many miles you've hiked or books you've read or sunsets you've watched from a chair that belongs to you. Nobody's grading that, and that's the whole point. Financial scarcity noise. This one's a little different, and it's one of my favorites to talk about. The noise of financial scarcity. Now, this only applies if you've done the work to retire with a solid financial foundation. And if you're watching this channel, you probably have, or you're working towards it. But let's talk about that noise, because it's something a lot of people don't even recognize until it goes quiet. For most of your working life, money has been a source of low-grade stress, not necessarily crisis-level stress, but background stress. The awareness of what's coming in and what's going out, the occasional anxiety about whether you're saving enough, the tension between what you want to spend money on and what you feel like you should spend money on, the nagging sense that you're not quite where you need to be yet. A well-planned retirement quiets that noise dramatically, not because money becomes infinite, it doesn't, but because the uncertainty resolves. You know what you have, you know what you need. You have a plan, and the plan is working. And for the first time in your financial life, you're not earning and saving and hoping. You're drawing down a system that you built by design over years of discipline. The financial background noise goes from an anxious hum to a confident hum. And that shift in the emotional tenor of money, from scarce and uncertain to sufficient and planned, is genuinely life-changing. 7. Other people's emergencies. Here's one that I think is wildly underrated. In a professional setting, other people's poor planning, poor communication, and poor execution become your emergency with remarkable frequency. The colleague who didn't start the project until the night before it was due, the client who changed their mind at the last minute, the manager who forgot to loop you in until everything was on fire, the system that broke on a Friday afternoon. You've spent years, maybe decades, being a first responder to situations you did not create, putting out fires you didn't start, answering calls and messages and Slack notifications at hours that were not reasonable because someone else's urgency had been handed to you like it was yours. In retirement, your phone might still buzz, but it's not about work anymore. And when something comes up that isn't your problem, you can simply not make it your problem. What a concept! The emergency response pager goes quiet, and you realize how much energy you were spending being on call for a life that was really just someone else's agenda. 8. The comparison trap. Here's a subtle one. The noise of professional comparison. When you're in your career, you're constantly, consciously or not, measuring yourself against your peers. Who got promoted, who's making more, who has a bigger title or a corner office or a better parking spot. The comparison is baked into the structure of organizational life. There are levels and ranks and hierarchies, and you're always somewhere on the ladder. Retirement flattens all of that, because outside of work, nobody cares about your old title. Your neighbor with the beautiful garden doesn't care if you were a senior vice president. The guy at the fishing hole doesn't care about your LinkedIn profile. The woman at your book club is interested in whether you've read the book, not what your performance trajectory looked like in 2023. The professional comparison noise goes quiet, and you get to meet people and yourself on entirely different terms. Terms that have a lot more to do with who you actually are as a person than what you produced for an organization. Some people find this liberating immediately. Some people have to work through some identity stuff first. Both are valid, but the destination is the same. A quieter, more grounded sense of self that doesn't depend on where you rank. And finally, and this might be the most important one, the clock goes quiet. Not the actual clock on the wall, but the internal clock. The relentless sense of time being structured and allocated and accounted for that has governed your life since you were 6 years old and started school. Your entire life, your entire adult life, has been organized around the premise that time is not yours. It belongs to your employer, to your schedule, to your obligations. You get little pockets of it back, evenings, weekends, vacation days, but even then the clock is ticking toward Monday, toward the next commitment, toward the end of the window. Retirement is the first time since childhood that time becomes yours again in any real sense. A Tuesday at 2 p.m. is the same as a Saturday at 2 p.m. A Wednesday morning in February is as available for joy as a weekend in July. The artificial scarcity of free time dissolves, and what happens to people when this clock goes quiet is fascinating. Most retirees say that the first few weeks feel strange, almost too open. They reach for their old schedule like a phantom limb. They feel like they should be doing something productive. They feel a little guilty just sitting and enjoying an afternoon with no agenda. But that fades, and what replaces it is something remarkable. A relationship with time that is expansive, generous, and, for the first time, entirely on your own terms. Here's what I want you to take away from this. Retirement isn't just about what you gain, it's also about what stops. It's about the layers of noise that have been so constant, so ever-present in your working life that you've probably stopped hearing them the way you hear traffic near a highway or the hum of an air conditioner. They're just there, part of the background of your existence. Until one day, they aren't. And in the quiet, you hear something you maybe haven't heard in a long time. Yourself. Your actual preferences, your actual rhythms. Your actual life, no longer filtered through the demands of someone else's organization. That's what retirement sounds like, and I hope every single one of you gets to hear it. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. Tell me what you are most looking forward to going quiet. I genuinely love hearing from you all. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, take care of your money, take care of yourself, and hold on to what it's going to feel like when the noise stops. I'll see you in the next one.